As long as you trade time for money, you will never be truly free. You see, most people are walking on a financial treadmill. You run harder, you work longer, but you stay in the exact same place. One sick day, one layoff, or one emergency, and everything collapses. You don't need a better job. You need a better system. Today, I am showing you the realistic roadmap to building your first $1,000 a month in passive income without the fake guru hype. Because let's be honest, if you work full-time and still feel financially stuck, there's usually a quiet frustration underneath it. You are doing what you were told to do. You show up. You earn. You save what you can. But progress feels slow and the effort never seems to end. Every month resets the same way. Income comes in, expenses go out, and whatever is left doesn't feel like it's changing your future. This is where the idea of passive income starts to sound appealing. Not because you want shortcuts, but because you want breathing room. So instead of talking about overnight success, this video focuses on something more practical. How people actually build wealth quietly, slowly, and effectively. As long as you trade time for money, you will never be truly free. You see, most people are walking on a financial treadmill. You run harder, you work longer, but you stay in the exact same place. One sick day, one layoff, or one emergency, and everything collapses. You don't need a better job. You need a better system. Today, I am showing you the realistic roadmap to building your first $1,000 a month in passive income without the fake guru hype. Because let's be honest, if you work full-time and still feel financially stuck, there's usually a quiet frustration underneath it. You are doing what you were told to do. You show up. You earn. You save what you can. But progress feels slow and the effort never seems to end. Every month resets the same way. Income comes in, expenses go out, and whatever is left doesn't feel like it's changing your future. This is where the idea of passive income starts to sound appealing. Not because you want shortcuts, but because you want breathing room. So instead of talking about overnight success, this video focuses on something more practical. How people actually build wealth quietly, slowly, and effectively. What passive income really is. Passive income is often misunderstood. It's not income without effort. It's income where effort is front-loaded instead of constant. You build or buy an asset, and over time that asset produces cash flow with less involvement from you. That asset might be money invested, content you've created, or something you already own that can be used more efficiently. The key is that the income continues even when you are not actively working on it that day. This matters because when people expect immediate results, they quit too early. Passive income almost always feels disappointing at first. The early numbers look small. The progress feels slow. But that's not because the system is broken. It's because compounding hasn't had room to work yet. Understanding this early prevents frustration later. Passive income rewards patience more than intensity. Why $1,000 is a system, not a single idea. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to find one idea that pays $1,000 per month by itself. In reality, most people reach that number by stacking multiple streams that grow at different speeds. A few $100s from investments, a few hundred from digital income, a few hundred from assets they already own. None of them feel life-changing alone. Together, they create stability. This is important psychologically. When you stop expecting one perfect solution, you stop jumping from strategy to strategy. You start thinking in terms of systems. Systems don't rely on motivation. They rely on consistency. Passive income becomes less about chasing numbers and more about building layers that support each other. HYSA at the base layer. Every passive income system needs a foundation. High-yield savings accounts serve that role. Traditional banks often pay almost nothing in cash. Online banks like SoFi and Ally Bank offer interest rates closer to 4 or 5%. This won't make you rich. That's not the point. The point is that your idle money starts working instead of slowly losing value. Emergency funds, short-term savings, and unused cash can all generate predictable income with zero complexity. Psychologically, this matters because it changes how you see cash. Instead of something that just sits there, it becomes an active part of your system. Stability is a form of progress, even when it's not exciting. Dividend ETFs. Letting capital pay you once you move beyond cash, dividend ETFs are one of the simplest ways to generate ongoing income. Instead of picking individual stocks, funds like SCHD or VIG spread your money across many companies that consistently pay dividends. The income may start small, but it grows as your balance grows. A 4% yield on $10,000 produces $400 per year. At lower balances, this feels insignificant. At higher balances, it becomes meaningful. This is where compounding starts to feel real. You're no longer relying only on contributions. Your portfolio begins contributing too. That shift reduces pressure and builds confidence. Real estate without ownership stress. Real estate has always been associated with passive income, but traditional ownership comes with time and responsibility. Crowdfunding platforms like Fundrise offer exposure to property without requiring you to manage anything directly. You invest alongside others and earn from rental income and long-term appreciation. It's slower and less dramatic than flipping houses, but it's also more sustainable. This type of income works well psychologically because it removes decision fatigue. You don't have to monitor it constantly. It becomes part of the background of your financial system. Affiliate income as digital equity. Affiliate income is often misunderstood, mostly because of how it's presented online. It's usually framed as quick money or easy commissions, which immediately turns people off. At its best, affiliate income has nothing to do with pushing products or convincing people to buy things they don't need. It's about building small digital assets that quietly connect people with things they were already looking for. The key shift is seeing affiliate income not as marketing but as digital equity. When you create a piece of content that answers a real question or solves a specific problem, that content becomes an asset. It sits there, available at any time, doing its job whether you're working or not. Over time, that asset can generate income simply by being useful. Amazon Associates is a common starting point because it removes friction. The platform is trusted, the products are familiar, and the setup is straightforward. You're not asking someone to trust a random brand or sign up for something complicated. You're simply pointing them towards something they already recognize. That simplicity matters, especially early on when confidence is fragile. The formats that work best are not flashy. Reviews, tutorials, and comparisons tend to perform well because they match how people already search online. Someone types a question into Google or YouTube because they want clarity. If your content provides that clarity, the affiliate link becomes a natural extension of the solution, not a sales pitch. This is where patience becomes important. Affiliate income almost always starts slow. A video might earn a few dollars a month at first. A blog post might go unnoticed for weeks. For many people, this is where they quit. The numbers look too small to matter and the effort feels unrewarded. But that reaction misses how this type of income actually compounds. Unlike hourly work, digital content doesn't reset every day. Each piece adds to the system. A video you made 6 months ago can still earn today. A guide you wrote last year can still convert readers tomorrow. Over time, these small contributions stack. Not linearly but quietly. The growth isn't dramatic, but it's persistent. Psychologically, this changes how you think about effort. Most work trains us to believe that reward only follows immediate action. You show up, you work, you get paid. Affiliate income breaks that pattern. You put in effort now and the reward arrives later, often when you're not expecting it. That delay can feel uncomfortable at first, but it's also where leverage lives. Leverage means your output is no longer limited to your time. One good piece of content can help hundreds or thousands of people without additional effort from you. That doesn't mean it's passive in the beginning. Research, clarity, and honesty still matter. But once the content exists, it continues working on your behalf. This is also why trust matters more than volume. A small audience that believes you is more valuable than a large audience that doesn't. When people feel that your recommendation is genuine, they're more likely to act on it. That trust compounds just like income does. Over time, your content becomes a reference point, not just a result in a search list. Another important aspect of affiliate income is optionality. You don't need to rely on it as your primary income source for it to be valuable. Even a few $100s a month can make a difference. It can cover a recurring expense, boost your investment contributions, or simply reduce financial pressure. When combined with other passive income streams, it becomes part of a larger system. That there's also a long-term mindset shift that happens here. Once you see that something you created continues to provide value without constant input, you start thinking differently about where you place your energy. You become more selective. You focus on work that has longevity instead of work that disappears the moment you stop. Affiliate income, when approached this way, is not about chasing trends or algorithms. It's about building small, durable pieces of value that compound quietly in the background. It rewards clarity, patience, and consistency more than intensity. And for many people, it's the first time they experience what it feels like to earn without repeating themselves. That experience alone can change how you approach money, work, and time. Not because it makes you rich, but because it shows you that systems can work for you when you give them time to grow. Turning owned assets productive. Passive income doesn't always start with buying something new or chasing the next opportunity. In many cases, it begins by looking more closely at what you already own. Most people focus on income first and assets second, But long-term systems work in the opposite direction. Assets come first. Income is simply what they produce. A car is one of the clearest examples of this idea. For most people, it's one of the largest purchases they make, yet it spends the majority of its life parked. Even when it's not moving, it continues to cost money through insurance, depreciation, and maintenance. That doesn't make it a bad purchase. It just means it's an underutilized one. Platforms like Turo make it possible to change that equation. By renting out your car selectively, you can turn a fixed cost into something that at least partially supports itself. The goal isn't to squeeze every possible dollar out of the asset. It's to improve efficiency. Even covering a portion of the monthly payment or insurance shifts the financial pressure significantly. This approach requires a mindset adjustment. Instead of seeing ownership as a static decision, you start seeing it as something dynamic. The question changes from, how much does this cost me? To, how can this help support itself? That shift alone can reshape how you think about money. What's important here is control. Renting out a car doesn't mean giving it up completely or putting it at constant risk. You decide when it's available. You choose how often it's rented. You set boundaries that fit your lifestyle. This keeps the system sustainable, which matters more than maximizing short-term income. Psychologically, this kind of passive income feels different from investing. It's tangible. You can see the asset. You understand its value. That familiarity reduces fear and makes the idea of passive income more approachable, especially for people who are cautious by nature. It also introduces an important concept. Depreciation doesn't have to be passive. Most people accept that assets like cars lose value over time and treat that loss as unavoidable. When an asset generates income, even modest income, it changes the narrative. The asset is no longer just declining in value. It's producing something along the way. This mindset doesn't stop with cars. Once you see how one asset can be optimized, you start noticing other opportunities. Extra space, equipment, or tools you rarely use all become candidates for productivity. Not because you need to monetize everything, but because you start thinking intentionally about efficiency. Another benefit of this approach is that it builds confidence without requiring abstraction. Unlike stocks or digital assets, you don't need to understand markets or algorithms to grasp what's happening. You're simply allowing an asset to do more work. That simplicity builds momentum. Over time, this kind of thinking becomes automatic. Before making a purchase, you naturally consider whether it could serve more than one purpose. Could it reduce another expense? Could it generate occasional income? Even if the answer is no, the question itself leads to better decisions. There's also a subtle but important emotional shift that happens. When an asset contributes financially, even in a small way, it feels lighter. Expenses feel more manageable. The asset feels justified, not just tolerated. That emotional relief is part of why systems like this are effective. It's worth noting that turning owned assets productive doesn't have to be permanent. You can try it for a few months, assess how it fits your life, and adjust. The flexibility is part of the design. Passive income systems that demand constant sacrifice tend to break down. Systems that adapt tend to last. In the bigger picture, this approach reinforces a core principle of long-term wealth building. You don't need to dramatically change your life to improve your financial position. Often, small structural changes create meaningful results over time. Reducing friction, improving efficiency, and aligning assets with purpose can quietly strengthen your entire system. Turning owned assets productive isn't about hustling harder. It's about thinking differently. Once you start viewing assets as tools rather than expenses, that perspective carries into every financial decision you make. And over time, those small shifts add up to something much more stable and sustainable than quick wins ever could. Business-like passive income. Vending machines fall into a category of passive income that sits between investing and running a traditional business. They are not fully hands-off, but they also don't demand daily attention. This middle ground is important because it highlights a truth that often gets ignored. Passive income doesn't mean zero responsibility. It means responsibility that is predictable, limited, and manageable. At the beginning, vending machines require effort. You need to find suitable locations, understand foot traffic, negotiate placement, and stock the machines. None of this is complicated, but it does require intention. The work happens up front, and the quality of that early effort determines how passive the income becomes later. Once a machine is placed in the right environment, the system starts to run on its own. People use the machine because it's convenient, not because it's marketed to them. Demand already exists. The machine simply captures it. That's why location matters more than complexity. A simple machine in a high-traffic area will usually outperform a sophisticated setup in a poor location. This type of income appeals to people who want something tangible. You can see the machine. You can track inventory. You can measure results clearly. For some investors, that physical presence builds confidence. It feels more real than numbers on a screen, even though the underlying principle is the same. An asset is producing income without constant input, but there's also a psychological benefit to the operational nature of vending machines. You know exactly what you're responsible for. Restocking, occasional maintenance, and monitoring performance are part of the system. Because those tasks are defined, they don't create ongoing stress. Uncertainty is often more exhausting than work itself, and vending machines reduce uncertainty through structure. This structure also teaches an important lesson about scalability. One machine may not generate significant income on its own, but multiple machines create momentum. Each additional unit doesn't double your workload. It adds incrementally. That's where the passive element becomes clearer. The system grows without a proportional increase in effort. Another advantage is predictability. Vending machine income doesn't fluctuate wildly based on markets or trends. It's influenced by routine human behavior. People buy snacks and drinks consistently. This stability makes it easier to plan and reinvest. You're not guessing. You're observing patterns and adjusting slightly over time. Most importantly, vending machines reinforce realistic expectations. They show that passive income is rarely about avoiding work altogether. It's about designing work in a way that supports your life instead of consuming it. When responsibility is manageable, consistency becomes easier. And consistency, over time, is what turns small systems into meaningful income streams. Business-like passive income reminds you that stability is valuable. It may not be exciting, but it's dependable. And for many people, that dependability is exactly what makes it worth building. The long view and identity shift. Earning $1,000 per month through passive income rarely happens all at once. In most cases, it emerges slowly as different systems begin to overlap and reinforce each other. One stream supports another. Small amounts add up. What looks insignificant early on becomes meaningful later, not because of speed, but because of consistency. The most important shift during this process isn't financial. It's internal. You stop measuring progress by how fast something grows and start measuring it by how well it holds up over time. Stability becomes more valuable than acceleration. You begin to care less about individual results and more about whether the system itself is working as intended. As that shift takes place, your relationship with money changes. Market movements feel less personal. A down month doesn't feel like failure. A slow period doesn't trigger panic. You understand that temporary setbacks are part of the system, not a sign that something is broken. That perspective creates emotional distance, and emotional distance leads to better decisions. You also begin to see yourself differently. Instead of reacting to outcomes, you focus on maintaining momentum. You build, adjust, and refine. You treat investing and income generation as long-term projects rather than short-term tests. That identity shift is subtle, but it's powerful. It replaces urgency with patience and replaces comparison with clarity. If you're early in this process, that's not a weakness. It's the phase where habits are formed and expectations are set. This is where discipline becomes routine and where consistency starts to feel natural. These early patterns matter more than initial results. Learning works the same way. Revisit ideas. Reflect on what applies to your situation. Think about which layer you're building next. Progress doesn't need to be dramatic to be real. Quiet progress is often the kind that lasts.